Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another EcksToo video. Now, I know what some of you guys might be thinking, this content is a little bit different than some of the normal EcksToo stuff, and it is. In the past, this video might have went up on my other channel, Eckhartsladder, but to be honest, I think over here at EcksToo, we've got big visions for the channel. I want to eventually move all, or at least almost all of my video game coverage over here, and eventually I want to move past just Star Wars video games, but also look at covering other stuff, like we've admittedly started to do with like The Last of Us 2 or Sea of Thieves or Mario Kart. Star Wars will always be a very important focus on this channel, as will science fiction and Empire at War and games like Halo. But if you think Corey, Charlie, and I moving into other games generally as well and starting to cover more things on a regular basis would be good, make sure to let us know down in the comments and to give this video a like. So today we'll be looking at some newly released, or I guess I should say newly leaked screenshots of the in-development game Star Wars 1313. Now, I'm going to cover what this game was in a second, and I'll put timestamps down below so you can skip by that if you're already familiar with this game. But 1313 captured, I think, the imagination of Star Wars fans, perhaps more than any other video game of, say, the last 20 years. Again, for Star Wars fans only. Unfortunately, I guess it was not meant to be, and after Disney purchased Star Wars, which included LucasArts and Lucasfilm and everything associated with Star Wars, they decided not to move forward on producing the game. So I'll talk about the new stuff that we now have in just a moment, but first I want to give a bit of background. So Star Wars 1313 would have been set in the Coruscant Undercity, and if you just know Coruscant from the prequel trilogy, what I'm saying might not make a whole lot of sense. But Coruscant's a super interesting place. It's actually a planet covered by a single city, which is called an Ecumenopolis, and Coruscant has just been building on itself for tens of thousands of years. So you have multi-kilometer long high skyscrapers, which themselves sit on thousands of stories which don't even see sunlight. So sort of like an iceberg, only a very small part of Coruscant is actually visible from the surface. Most of it is hidden beneath, and it doesn't take very long for you to be in the Undercity, the area below the main sprawl. And the interesting thing about Coruscant is just how deep this area is. There are thousands and thousands of layers, and the deeper you get, the stranger and more dangerous and more mysterious things would get, again, like the ocean. There are parts of the Coruscant Undercity which haven't seen sunlight or fresh air for literally tens of thousands of years. There are creatures living down there who aren't even understood or cataloged in any sort of biological index. I'm sure there's radiation and debris and dangers and everything else which has migrated from the higher parts of Coruscant. And to me, it all comes together to make a setting that would be extremely interesting for a video game, and that's why people freaked out so much about Star Wars 1313. The game had been worked on since 2009 or 2010, but we got a first look at E3 2012. We don't know exactly what the game would have been like, probably an action adventure game, perhaps even open world, but we do know that George Lucas was interested in integrating it with his Star Wars Underworld series, which he was working on but was also cancelled, and it probably would have had crossovers with like the Clone Wars. We know too that eventually, after 2012, George Lucas actually mandated that Boba Fett be the main character, so you would have been playing as a young Boba Fett in the Coruscant Undercity. It sounds very interesting. And minus the Boba Fett, this was displayed at E3 2012. We see a ship go into this massive portal, the same one from Star Wars The Clone Wars, and they're headed towards level 1313, which, despite being still over 1,000 levels above the bottom of Coruscant, if that even exists anymore, was still considered to be extremely deep. The trailer shows some action, and then at the very end, the ship gets shot down. I'm not going to explain the whole thing to you. It's easily available on YouTube, and I'll link it down below. But the hype for the game was absolutely unreal, as was the disappointment when it was eventually canceled by Disney. Alright, so with that being said, let's look at the pictures. And one thing you guys will notice right away is that yes, that is Starkiller as the player-controlled character. That's just because the model for Boba Fett, or whoever the main character ended up being, was not finalized yet. So they just used Starkiller as a model, and it's very clear that this was an early work in development and that these pictures were never supposed to be seen by the general public. On that note, I won't be paying too much attention to the UI or anything, but what I do notice is that this basically confirms my worst fears in that this is the Star Wars game that I wanted. Let me be clear, I really liked Jedi Fallen Order, but I'm tired of just going to agricultural planets and Kashyyyk and basically just running through the woods, and this was kind of a brave step in the other direction. We're at Coruscant, we're at a city which would have been populated by familiar aliens, and I mean, even in the screenshots here, we can see an Ithorian in front of this bar, we see a Twi'lek dancer, we see some Rhodians, and we see an environment which looks very much like we would expect it to. I would say that this probably isn't 1313 even, this isn't that level, it's certainly not lower. This looks like sort of the high undercity right below, I guess what you'd call like the plate where the upper city begins. We sort of got a look at that in the trailer and in some of the concept art that was released in the years after 1313 was cancelled. So if I were to just make a wild speculation based on absolutely nothing, I would guess that perhaps your ship crashes and you're forced to make your way down deeper on foot or through some other means. And I mean, this environment does look pretty sketchy. There's graffiti. I'm sure you'd see gangs and stuff if the place was actually populated, but this isn't anywhere near as weird and as dark as the Coruscant Underworld would get. I mean, you might even still be getting some natural light occasionally here. You've got well-lit spaces, you know, you do still have some maintenance being done. You've got those bright neon lights. It could be a lot worse. This is sort of like what we see in Season 7 of the Clone Wars. And this is sort of the cool thing about actually limiting a game to one planet. Sure, it's all technically on Coruscant, but you can spend the time making so many different spaces that it essentially feels like different planets, or unlike say Jedi Fallen Order, the different parts of the planet actually feel unique. And I mean, I feel like it's been so long since Star Wars has taken us to a Coruscant or a really populated planet. Feels like Star Wars games and movies like to spend their time mostly now at barren outposts, so this would have been so nice to get, and I'm just so disappointed that we didn't. But I mean, even in these screenshots, there's the hint at what's below. You can look over the edge and you can see kilometers upon kilometers, I'm sure, of just an abyss below. And the interesting part of the game would have been knowing that eventually you'll have to go down there and confront whatever it is that you need to do, and you'll probably have to try to claw your way back up to the surface, which to me has always been a really interesting thing. There are movies like that I quite enjoy. On a completely random note, As Above, So Below is one of those. And I know I've said this before, but it just would have been really interesting to see a sort of descent into a figurative hell. More than just that, though, the Star Wars Undercity provides a lot of interesting opportunities for just a gritty Star Wars experience. And we've talked about this sometime during TapCaf Transmissions, which is the podcast that I run with Corey, and we sort of just read Star Wars books. And whenever you go into the Undercity, there's always lots of cool bars. You see aliens which probably don't really exist elsewhere in the galaxy. It sort of gives you that Tatooine cantina feel. We get a bit of discussion about this actually on the Star Wars 1313 Wikipedia page, where it talks about the music development for this game, and I just want you to imagine that you're, deep under Coruscant, and maybe to get to this mission you've got to go down a side road and then down an alleyway, and then the alleyway is like smoky with strange aliens everywhere, and to get the mission you have to go inside this strange little hole in the wall bar. I don't know, I'm rambling now, but let me know what you think. Could 1313 have possibly lived up to our expectations? Are we putting way too much on a game that never even got very far into development, it seems? Do you think there's a possibility that 1313 could actually come out someday? Kathleen Kennedy has not said that the project's dead forever, and it's definitely possible, especially with what we got in Jedi Fallen Order. Let me know all of that and anything else you'd like to say down below. Again, let me know what you think about sort of more general video game coverage and gaming, so more Mario Kart type games, more Worms, more Civilization. Let me know all of that down in the comments, but until then guys, have a good one, be safe, and may the Force be with you.